you are watching the interview program. Today our guest is Mr. George Chen, the Managing Director at the Washington, D.C. headquarters, business and policy consulting firm, the Asia Group. We will cover the topic of business and the steps to start a successful enterprise. Hello, Mr. Chen. Welcome to our program.
Thank you.
So, if I'm not mistaken, you have been visiting Uzbekistan for the first time. So, what are your expectations? What are the ideas? And do you have any promising plans here?
Thank you. It was actually my second time in Tashkent. My first time was last time when I was here represented another company, Meta, which was pretty known as Facebook, the US technology company. But this time it's my first time coming with my new role as the Managing Director for the Asia Group. I'm here to meet some old and new friends. And I'm also wearing my academic hat as a scholar from the University of Hong Kong. So I tried to partner with the Mass Media Foundation here, and we talked about some potential areas for cooperation, such as media literacy and how to help the local creators to get to know more about new media.
Mm-hmm. Let's turn to the main topic of the program. So, in your opinion, what should be done to be a successful businessman?
Mm-hmm. So I think it depends on how you define success. Some people will say the minimum, like a basic requirement of being success to defining success for business people is, of course, you need to make your business profitable, right? You need to make money. It's business. It's not a charity. But that's just the very basic level of success. Moving up, when you in your career path, you will think more about, beyond the wealth. It's more about whether you can have a more mission-driven business that can create a positive impact, on the society, right? It doesn't mean to be, only big business can have a big mission. Even you have a small coffee shop, you think about how my small coffee shop can contribute to my local community. Can I provide a space, a very good space, for young people to feel comfortable to come, meet new friends, exchange ideas. That will be beyond the, just the cost, normal business of like having coffee in a coffee shop. So to put some meaning in the business, to have a mission-driven, business, that will be, my definition of, how to define the success of business.
So there was a research conducted in the US with the businessmen, and according to that, only 2% of the businessmen said and put themselves on the top of the Maslow pyramid, but 98% do not. And so my question is, when the businessman says that I have achieved everything, that's it, I have a lot of money to live the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot of, rich people around me. By saying rich, they are rich. Yes, I know they have a lot of wealth, but I very rarely hear people around me saying, "I'm, rich enough. I want to retire." It's not because they don't have, enough money to retire. It's more about they are thinking, hey, nowadays, people have longer life expectancy, right? In the older times, when people, retire at the age of 60, if people live up to like 80, it was wow, this is really long life. But now 80 is like the new normal. So I think, more and more rich people or success people think more about, okay, after I hit my first goal, right? I have enough money to retire. What's next? Like, how can I take a best use of the rest of my life to do something more meaningful, going beyond wealth? Can I repay something, contribute to the society? I come from Hong Kong. This is my home where I'm based. Philanthropy is now a very big topic. When you get to a certain level of wealth, you think more about, can I donate something to a meaningful cause, to university, to think tank, to contribute to something that I really care about, right? And of course, you will leave some wealth, to your children, if you have children. But I think you also begin to hear more and more business people talking about, no, I don't want to leave like a 99% wealth to my children, right? So I think that's the trend. Like people are not just satisfied with enough money for retirement, and then I just retire at the age of 60.
So what about luck? Do you think that luck also plays a crucial role in the business environment when you have a well-organized business plan?
Luck is a very important factor. I think the older you are, the more you sort of believe in destiny, right? I really like one older saying, I think in English we say, the God disposes, human proposes. But you still need to propose it. You still need to make efforts. You can't just leave everything to, whatever, it's just all about luck, let's don't do anything, That's not the right attitude. Luck will happen when you are ready. If you don't make efforts, just, sleep in bed, have 3 meals a day, be a normal person, even the luck comes to you, it will just slip away because you are not ready. You are not prepared to catch the luck, to make things happen when the lucky moment happens.
Many businessmen experience a failure, and most of them lose their hope, and not all of them continue the way. So did you also have a failure in your life, and how did you handle that?
Mm-hmm. Of course, I think all the successful business people, they have a lot of ups and downs, in their life. I rarely heard of someone, who's like sailing a ship, just very smooth. Everything is fine, according to, like almost on schedule. No, life is not like that. When I was young, I didn't go to my first choice of university. I went to the second choice of my university. That could be considered as a failure, when I was young. But then if you put the so-called failure in a longer, life time frame, and then when you look back, it was not really a failure. It was more, another kind of like opportunity, a direction to, another chapter of your life. There could be also serious failures. I know a lot of startup, friends, entrepreneurs, they failed once, twice, 3 times before they can make their startup, new business right. I really, really respect that. Even you own and run a coffee shop, a small coffee shop, I still very respect that because you are an owner of something, right? You hire staff, you're responsible for your business, you're responsible for your staff, you pay salaries, you pay tax, which is not easy. But again, I think a failure can also contribute to a lot of experience. People always learn from failure. Unfortunately, we know, in some cases, people are afraid of failure, or they may be failed once and then they just give up. That will be really, unfortunate because, especially in the early stage of the career, young people should not be afraid of, failure. I remember my professor once told me, before the age of 30, you can try everything, because being young is your best, competitive, advantage. You can lose everything, start over again. You're still young, but hopefully before 30, 35, you will get a clear idea of what the direction of your career or your business will be like.
For the starting the business, it's essential to have a well-organized business plan. Can you specify the ordered steps of organizing the business plan, successful business plan?
I think first you need to do your own research, right? You need to know what your competitive advantage is. What is the market environment is like. Let's say opening a coffee shop. If the same district already has 10 coffee shops, you ask yourself, whether you should enter, the business in, the coffee shop business still. If you already have like 10 competitors, right? Or maybe you should open a tea house because there's no tea house. Only 10 coffee shops. And number 2, I think you also need to think about who your partners are. Starting a business is never just about yourself. One person can only do this much, right? If you are an engineer, you have a great idea for the product, you know how to code, but you may not be a great marketing manager. So you need to ask yourself, can you find, who's your best marketing manager among your friends? You can trust this person, and then you can find a co-founder, to start the business all together. If you look at all the great business, Microsoft, Bill Gates has co-founder. Mark Zuckerberg has co-founder. I think to have a team is also very important. Then you just feel like, I have a great idea. I can do everything myself.
So let's say I have a good business idea. I did a research, but I don't have enough money because I'm only a student. So what should I do?
In some countries, the university will give you, we call it like seed money, like a small money, to help you get started. In some countries, there are also loans for small startups, right? If you can prove your idea, you have to write a good business plan, right? And there's also something called venture capital. If you really think your idea is brilliant, and then if you can pass all the tests, you will get some small money. But I know in most cases, the students, young people, sometimes they will borrow money from their families. It's a big ask, right? I will not highly encourage everyone to do so unless you check again and again and again. You really think this idea can take off. And I suggest you also make the worst scenario when you make your best scenario, which is to say, if you borrow $10,000 from your family, and your family can afford to lose the 1,000, right? That's fine. But you also need to think about how big the chance for failure. Let's say you open a coffee shop. What is the rent? How many cups of coffee you can sell every day? What is the cost? After all things considered, how much money you can make, and then how long can you repay the money? So after all the mathematics, you are still confident that you can sell 100, 200 cups of coffee every day to make the number, then let's do it.
So my last question is, that's an interesting one. Do all the businessmen have a term of pension in their vocabulary? Do they receive pension?
So I don't know about the pension system in Uzbekistan that much. I come from Hong Kong, so we have our own sort of mandatory, like pension fund system. So if you work for someone, the employer and the employee both need to contribute, to basically the government pension fund. And after you hit the retirement age, like 65, you can get some money, from the government pension fund. But let's be honest, I might have a very controversial view. People may disagree with me, but I always tell myself, don't just live on the pension fund, which is pretty, sad. If I can only live on my pension fund when I get old. The truth is, if you think about how much, money you put every month as your pension fund, right? Required by the government, you have to do that. But put it in 20 years, how big the inflation could be. Even you have $1 million Hong Kong dollar, by the time you retire, the $1 million, by absolute meaning, in terms of buying power, it could be at least by 50% less. You know what I mean? So I will not just bet on my pension fund. Luckily, as I mentioned, I worked for Facebook, so over the past 7 years, I got a lot of company stocks. So I consider my Facebook stock as my secondary pension fund. So as long as the stock keeps rising, I hope that can afford me for a very good retirement life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Chen, dedicating your time for us. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks a lot. The pleasure is also mine. Always good to be back to Tashkent.